Started in 2015, started talking to clients, growing the business. We have a little over 60 employees in 18 different states. We did 3.3 million in sales last year. And that's kind of the growth we've been through in the last 5 years. Anchor is a great example of a solution that I was able to utilize because, how do I send a contract over? How do I collect on somebody? How do I make sure that this is efficient? How do I, present something that is, how do I get somebody to sign an agreement when they're online and they're in, 4 states over? I can't run over and hand them a manual copy. What I was doing before Anchor was manually emailing Word documents that they would have to print out, sign, scan, send it back to me. I would have to print it out with their signature, sign it myself, send it back to them so they have a copy of the signed document. And now I have an executed agreement. I mean, talk about a waste of everybody's time. First problem that you guys presented to me, which I absolutely love, was like, hey, look, here's an online agreement that people can sign. Perfect. Like I needed that. And then we can attach my billing to that as well. So I don't have to, email them, remind them to send me a check. Oh, that's perfect. I was a big fan of that. The key to adding a new client is you want to make the process as painless as possible. So when we're approaching a client, I don't want to be sending back and forth 15, 20 different emails trying to get them to sign an agreement, print it out, all the different things. I want it to be, hey, here's a link, go here. Everything you need to do to onboard and be working with us is in this page. We onboard you as a client and now we're working and we're scheduling our meetings. So away we go. For the most part, we did have an advantage in the sense that we pay a lot of our clients' bills, but for restaurants, it was one extra step. I would have to get the invoice to them, make sure that they would add that into their database, make sure they saw it, approved it, didn't have any questions, and, then have to refer to the agreement and say, hey, look, no, this is what we agreed upon. That's why it's this dollar amount. Anyways, it was just the whole rigmarole of reminding everybody and generating invoices. And Anchor saved me a ton of time. I didn't have to generate invoices every month. If the client had any questions, I could just send them to review the agreement that they already had, which was a link in their invoice. So just made my life a lot easier. Let's talk about what our average leakage was when I was doing this manually. So before Anchor, we brought Anchor in about 2021. So right when we really needed to work on our cash flow and work on options on collecting cash, because in order to grow, you need cash. So in 2018, 2019, and 2020, I did the math and we were averaging about 5% a year in leakage, meaning, we weren't able to collect because the client would go several months without paying. And then, you turn the service off, but unfortunately I've already spent that service and labor. I've got to pay my employees. I haven't found a company yet that doesn't pay their employees and continues to operate. So we're averaging about 5% before Anchor. And then, what you add that up, I think that's a total of 650,000, 675 roughly that we had 5% loss in. So a little over 125, 130. And then you go into 2021. And if we had continued that rate of 5%, that would have been a very big number, very painful, right? For 1.6 plus 3.3, you're talking several hundreds of thousands of dollars lost in agreement signups. I'm very happy to announce that it's less than 1% in 2021 and 2022. We saved ourselves quite a bit by having that agreement in place and having that billing be automatic. Saved us a ton of money. So very, very happy about that process and how that rolled through. So again, 2018 through 2020, about 5% leakage, 21, 22, 1% leakage, thanks to Anchor. I was able to focus on people who are generating revenue as opposed to hiring an AR clerk to manage this for me in the sense of, I mentioned we've got about 81 agreements currently in Anchor. When I was doing this before, it would average me about 1 to 2 hours to send out a proposal to a client. So review the agreement, make sure that everything that I discussed with the client is on there. Send out the agreement. Again, we talked about having it printed out, manually signed, and it would take me anywhere between 1 to 2 hours to manage that proposal, make sure I have the wording just right. The email is flowery and all the fun things so that I didn't anger or get a client angry, right? When I send out that agreement. So that was one thing that was a barrier to entry that once we were growing and currently we're sending about 10 to 20 of those a month. So you do the math on that. That's even if you do 1 hour for 20 of those or 10 to 20, I'm still saving myself 10 to 20 hours a month just to kind of not having to do that manually as opposed to doing it through Anchor. So that's a big win. An AR clerk here would probably be more in the 65 to 75 range to manage finances, which is something that I'm able to do on my own and save that and invest that instead into a full-time accountant who I can generate revenue with that employee. It's 100% Anchor. Like the only reason why I didn't hire an AR clerk was because I was able to handle it myself with Anchor. So I looked at my options here. I was like, well, I can, invest in a software, right? Build a partnership that allows me to grow and instead, take the savings I'm getting out of that. Instead of hiring an AR clerk, I can now go hire an accountant who I can bill for their time, generate revenue, which can then allow me to go hire another accountant, which allow me to bill for their time, generate more revenue, which go hire more people, grow, and just rinse and repeat for the cycle, right?